when people get to the other side of that big project and realize, oh, that didn't really do it. Fuck. What do I do? Hi, Ben.
Hi, Carl.
How are you today, sir?
I'm doing really well now that I'm, schmoozing with you. So
Oh,
let's put it that way. But yeah,
is it
I'm doing okay.
is it still schmoozing if we've been friends for many years?
Of
I feel
course,
like
a conversation
we,
is a schmooze. Any
I think
conversation is a schmooze.
maybe for us Gentiles, I feel like schmoozing is usually like in a networking sort of scenario.
Ah,
So I was like,
that's
do you
just
just
like
see me as your business
that's just
acquaintance?
like a
Is that
crass. That's just like a crass. I don't know, definition of the word schmooze. It's not the
yeah?
true definition of the word schmooze. Like you know, there's a smear campaign or smear campaign, but there's smearing your bagel, and that's kosher every time, right? if
Yes.
it's
So like,
if the ingredients are kosher.
it'd be so much better if political smear campaigns were actually just like kind of like the Nickelodeon slime bucket, but
Yes,
with
yeah,
like
yeah, and then you smear it.
cream cheese or whatever. But anyway,
Exactly.
on that completely nonsensical note, I'm glad to see you.
Yeah.
It's been a little while.
Yes. We don't have to discuss why, but I'm glad to be here and to talk to you again. So
I'm glad you're here too.
yeah,
So today's topic. Do you want to tee it up or should I do it?
I'm gonna attempt to tee it up because this is something that I know you've been getting nerdy about recently. But essentially, we're trying to debunk the myth that if you have Grammys or amazing credits, you're just gonna, that's it. Once you get the credits, you're gonna be good to go, and you don't really have to try to get leads or drive people to work with you. That's it. You've built it, and now they will come. And we're saying that that's not true. And Carl knows better than me that that's not true because he works with people who have credits and tries to get them more work. So, Carl, does that sound like a good framing for what we're going to be talking about today?
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah. Yeah, it's like this. I want to talk about the myth that, like you said, like once you have a big credit, everything is going to be easy from that point on. Like it's like word of mouth is therefore going to just kind of carry you on until you retire, right? Um, and if that were the case, um, I I would not have had a lot of the conversations that I've had with people that do have Grammys and number ones and Emmys and all sorts of big, ridiculous, culture shifting album credits that still have a hard time finding work. And I kind of want to like be very blunt about it before I start talking about some of like the positive, like how to reframe how we look at uh, what success really actually is. But I want to be very kind of like, I don't know, get out of the way, tough love, Daddy Carl time, and just say, like, you can have a Grammy and still be broke, and you could have a big number one and still be broke. You can have these big accolades. You could have a huge artist on your portfolio and still not be able to get clients. And I want to get that out of the way because that is a myth that I think has been just perpetuated by whether it's society or hope maybe or maybe that was like how it was in the past at some point in the industry, but like that's just not how it actually works. Like right now I've got I think 15 or 16 students that have Grammys that come to me and get my help with figuring out client acquisition because it's just not it's not something that is guaranteed. And
It's also not something that they thought about working on because they were so focused on like the process of being an amazing audio engineer to work with said
yep
kind of artists, right?
yeah
they're,
that's
they're like, how do I get amazing drum sounds? And they're just so dialed in on that, but they haven't looked up to see, oh wait, but how do people find out about me? Right? Like they're just not,
yeah
that's not on their radar.
Yeah, and it's a blessing and a curse because word of mouth is amazing when it works, but then the second that it stops, everybody just kind of craps their pants because they don't know where the the projects are going to be coming in, And I think that's why I've seen a lot of very successful producers and engineers, very successful on paper, um, either really struggling to find clients and not wanting to admit it or acknowledge it until it's too late, which is maybe like that's probably like a generational thing, something to talk to therapists about. Um, or they start getting into other side, I don't say side hustles, but like other parts of the industry, like making mixed tutorials and like kind of going that route, not because they want to, but because they feel like that's where the money is. Or they start doing like corporate stuff and just not talking about it publicly. There's a lot of stuff that I've seen that kind of happens, behind the curtain, that is really depressing, when you think that it's all preventable because it all stems from this belief that, yeah, you get a big credit, you get, a big artist on your resume, and you're going to be set. And I think it's us, it makes sense why we think that, not just because we see it in TV shows and movies and whatever, but also because for a lot of people, when they have that big like sprint of success and stuff to talk about, they do get a lot of attention and they do get a surge in inquiries.
Yeah.
But the thing that I nobody talks about is that a Grammy has a shelf life. And I don't mean that in the sense that like it lives on a shelf. That's no pun intended there.
Hopefully the shelf will
Um,
stay there and the Grammy will stay put for a long time,
yes, yeah. I don't mean like literally. It's not gonna it's not gonna like spoil and go bad. But in the sense that if you have a big credit and a big award, like in, 2025, that's going to be more relevant to artists than something that was from 2015 or 2005. Right.
Right.
And it's, it's uncomfortable to talk about, but I think that's something that needs to be talked about because it's true. I've seen it firsthand so many times through like
Yeah.
talking to so many people that have that. And it's, I something that I want to talk about because it's fixable and because it's something that we can shift how we look at it, how we look at what success is. And I'm not saying that in a like Travis Ferentz progressions podcast, like friend of the show, love him. But I don't mean it in a like reframing success in a mental health standpoint. I just mean like that. What are some of the landmarks that we look to achieve in our careers, and what do those landmarks mean? And I just want to say that having a Grammy, having a number one, having a big hit is a landmark, but it's not the finish line. And I think people look at that as the finish line. So the finish line and then like everything else after that is just like a victory lap. You just do victory laps for the rest of your career. And that's not how it is. So what I want to look at and what I want to talk about today are the kind of like three essential principles that we need to always keep in mind if we want to actually have a successful and sustainable and like creatively fulfilling career.
Yeah. And one that doesn't dry up and have bad seasons.
Yes, exactly. To avoid the feast or famine. It's like if you
Right.
can like instill these three things into your head, like that will help you to get out of the feast or famine.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest shift you can make.
Yeah. Okay. So
So
let's get into it, Carl. You have
yes,
the three principles. Give
three
us the
principles.
first principle.
So the first principle is that potential clients need to have a problem that we can solve. And we think, okay, that's pretty obvious. Yeah, like they need mixing. So we can mix it. Problem solved, right? And I think that's the very, very shallow way of looking at that problem. And I think more importantly, we should be looking at, what are the deeper problems that we have that we can solve. So you could say, uh, I describe like the four different like levels of clients or the four different levels of like client purchase decision making
Mm.
as at first people are hiring based on the price. You are cheaper than them, so they're going to hire you, or they're cheaper than you, so they're going to hire the other person. After that stage, they start to be making their decisions based on quality. It's like, okay, well, I know this person's a little bit more expensive, but the mixes sound a lot better, so I'm gonna spend the extra $100 to do this, or whatever that number is. But then above that, like the next level, it's the people that are looking for the experience. Like they know that they can get a really great quality mix from a lot of different people, and they want to work with somebody that they get along with collaboratively and creatively, and like they really feel like fulfilled themselves when they're working with you.
Yeah.
And that fourth level is the peace of mind. And I would say like that's, you know, I don't like, talking about individual mixers or anything in like on the podcast. Like but for good or bad, I think this is just like a neutral thing. But like let's say like Serban. I would say Serban is gonna be one of those people where like, yeah, of course this makes it sound great. Yeah, like that's not a question. But it's not that like Serban's the only person that can do a great pop mix, And I'm sure like you could make an argument that there are going to be some other people that do like there are some pop mixes from other people that sound better than some of the ones that he's done. But as the peace of mind, like people hire Serban because they know what they're going to get. They know it's going to be really, 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 really good. They're going to get like there's not going to have any hiccups. There's not going to be any drops in communication. There's not going to be any problems at all. Like, and they know that he's going to get done on time when he needs to. They're like everything's going to work.
Right.
So when you have an artist that they're doing this for fun and it's just like their hobby, like yeah, like there's nothing else financially really involved. So and there's no pressure, right? So it's just like, okay, well, there's no pressure. So like, I'm just going to get the cheapest option, which is why for like mastering engineers, people will go to like, Lander or whatever. Then you have like the quality and it's like, okay, well, maybe they'll get somebody to do it, or maybe they'll learn how to master themselves because they think they can do a better job than Lander. And that's more important than like the money. And they might spend the money on some plugins, more than the couple bucks a month for like e-mastering. But to them, it's worth it because the quality is going to be better. Then you have the experience of, hiring a really like professional mastering engineer, and not just somebody that does a good sonic job, but somebody that like also gives you feedback and is like really easy to work with and, answers your questions, all those things. And then you still have like those top mastering engineers that, yeah, they do a really great job. And yeah, they have all the same gear as somebody else, but it's also that peace of mind that like they've done so many high level projects and they all sounded great that there's almost like no risk involved in hiring that person. And especially when we talk about like mixing and production and these bigger things, the artists have so many other things to worry about that the hobbyist, like weekend artist that's just doing it for fun, like they're not worried about marketing and PR and ad spend and like tour logistics and all that label negotiations and that stuff, right? So like the higher up you go, like the more other problems that they have. So the peace of mind of like not having to think twice about it and just knowing they can hand you the files and it's going to sound fucking awesome and everything's going to be like done without a hitch. To them, that's why they pay so much money for that.
Right.
So the reason I wanted to explain that is because, well, number one, I think it's super important that we kind of understand that. But number two, when we think about finding a problem that we can solve and knowing that the artists have to have a problem that we can solve, solving the same problem, if we think of it as they need a song mixed, I do mixing, I'm solving their problem. Well, when I said it has a different like scope and like different intensity and different like emotional value, depending on where that artist is, depending on like what stage it is, it's a very different consideration. So, somebody that would like if like somebody that charges, $10,000 for a mix, like they're charging that because the people that are hiring them see that see like the solution of that of getting the mix done by them with that experience and that peace of mind is that's worth the $10,000 to them. So like being able to do a $10,000 mix for one client does not mean that every other client is going to see $10,000 value. So that weekend artist, like the SoundCloud rapper, is not going to be like, oh, I'm gonna yeah, it's totally worth $10,000 to get that.
Yeah.
Because to them it's not that the mixes are any better or worse or that you're a different person. It's just it's a different amount of pain that
Right.
the
Well, like,
artist is in.
yeah, like major labels, right? They hopefully have enough cash to go around to pay a very high mixing rate. and they can just be like, yeah, it's almost like they're happy to throw money at a problem because they have more money than maybe like they don't have like the resources to deal with like a headache of not being happy with the mix or whatever. So they're just going to go with the option that they know they're going to be happy with, which is Serban, or for
Yeah. Well,
example.
I mean, even if we think of it like less about just like throwing money somewhere and just thinking like there are so many moving pieces
Right.
to a big album release, especially for
Yes.
like a bigger artist, that
They just don't want any
any
hiccups. Yeah. No
any
hiccups.
hiccups,
No
even if it's
hiccups.
like the files get there like and a couple hours after when they needed to
Yeah.
get there, like that could cost them
Yeah.
tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, like millions of dollars in some cases,
Right.
in the
Right.
long run.
Right.
Because
Right.
it just like in a way, if you think about when was it the Suez Canal or whatever, like the canal was that had like the boat that got
Yeah.
stuck for a
Yeah.
while and like
The
totally screwed up the
Suez. Yeah.
supply chain,
Not far
the
from
Suez
here.
Canal. But like when that happened,
Yeah.
like one boat got stuck and it fucked up everything for like the world economy for a long time,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
it's a bigger scale, but if we think about it, like if there's an issue with the mixes or like the artist isn't happy with it, and or there's like a delay because the mixer is slow and like doesn't have the flexibility and the availability to do all of the revisions or whatever, like like it's worth it to spend that $10,000 or whatever the money is because it prevents all that other stuff, like all the
Cascading
it's
issues.
cascading, right? And
Yeah.
like the cascading potential risk for that, a SoundCloud rapper that's going to spend $50, like there is no cascading risk. They just like
It's just
don't
wait
put it
another
out and
day.
whatever.
Yeah. Just wait
At
another
the end of the
day.
day, like they're going to get 10 listeners,
Yeah, listen,
So
I spoke with John Greenham, who mastered the first Billie Eilish record, and he was like
yeah,
saying like, I just get a record and they need it ASAP, and I listen basically for 15 minutes. I do the best I can, and that's basically how you master really big singles,
yeah,
and albums. Like you just there's no time to overthink it. You just do, right?
yeah.
But they get paid for their experience in their ears and the track record of just doing doing a great job doing those masters really quickly. And
And yeah, and
that's
yeah,
the
like that
story.
peace of mind that like whenever we have this song, we can call John and we'll get it back in like an hour or two.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and if it's like doctors that are on call,
Yeah.
nights and weekends or whatever, like it's it's good money because they need to be like able to provide that drop of a hat service, and that drop of
Yeah.
a hat service is very valuable to
Specific
the labels
clients.
or this artists.
Yeah.
So where this kind of falls apart for a lot of producers and engineers, it's when they want to raise their rates. They want to work with like higher and higher clients. Maybe they're used to working with these clients and they want to like start working with like the better and better clients, but they don't take into consideration the kind of problems that they have. Cause like it's a very different sort of problem to solve for a $50 client versus, a $500 client, and it's not in the classic producer meme, like complaining about a $50 client and like $5,000 clients, like super easy to work with. Like, well, number one, that's true for a reason, but also it has nothing to do with the client. It has to do with, what are the expectations that we have of ourselves and the way that we think we can help people, and like making sure that that's in alignment with the problems we're actually, publicly saying that we can solve. Right. So if you make all of your marketing about, uh, like really, reasonable rates, fast turnaround, you're going to attract artists that really are valuing that. If you make the marketing about like the quality of it more so than like the pricing, then you're going to get people that are more interested in that. If you make the marketing about the experience that you have and like the creativity and the collaboration and all of that, like that's going to that's going to attract a different type of clientele than everybody else. And and then like when it comes to like those really big artists, like that's a kind of like a whole nother beast. But again, it's like the marketing for them is more just like that is the relationships, and that is like where the word of mouth and like their success, their constant track record is helping them.
Right.
And it's the interesting thing is like for myself, like I am not up here, but I am definitely in that like third layer of like, the experience of working with me, not just like the price or the sound quality. And that's why like I don't talk about gear or like mixing really ever. You know what I mean? Like it seems kind of counterintuitive, but like I always talk about like the relationships that I have with the artists, like the collaborative, like the creative things we've tried, this, the way that I love like the relationships that I have with them, like funny stories about like us as friends. Like I'm not talking about here's my mix chain or whatever, or like
Yeah.
here's what I
This
can
is the
do to make
vocal
it
chain for
cheap.
the
It's because I'm trying to make sure that I'm attracting the right people for my goals.
right.
So it's not just maybe I should reframe this is that like it's not just that the potential clients have, they need to have a problem that we can solve. They have to have a problem that we want to solve, or a problem that is big enough to justify the kind of income we want to make. So, that's the first principle. It's kind of
Mm.
a bit of a tangent on that, but I think it's important. So first principle being they have to have a problem that you can solve. The second one, and this is one that I feel like people know but don't do anything about, and it drives me nuts, is that clients can't hire you if they don't know that you exist. Like it's obvious, it's super obvious, but that's it's why is it then so common and infuriating for me when there are really great producers and engineers that don't utilize social media. They don't have a website. They don't do outreach and like start conversations. They think if they build it, they will come kind of thing is going to happen, and it doesn't. Maybe it did in the 70s or something. You know what I mean? It did in Field of Dreams, the movie, but like in real life, it doesn't happen. Because like
Yeah, and
they're
even
calling
in the
it,
70s it probably didn't happen. It was just like a different kind. It was a different kind of networking, right? Like it
yeah,
was if
there's
you were
just
in the
less.
music scene in
Yeah,
LA in the 70s, then you met people at parties and you met, people were just in the room and
yeah,
you would meet artists just hanging out in the studio. It was a different kind of water cooler, whatever
and
situation. It wasn't, you didn't need to
yeah,
be on social media because everybody was in the same, in the same spaces, really. This is like sort of like a tangent, but like when I was like playing bass with Alex Clare, like in my scenes, people knew who he was. That was like, and I was still doing gigs and I was like meeting other people. That was like a good word of mouth sort of generator because it's like I'm talking about people ask you what you're doing, and you're with them,
yeah.
and then they're like, oh, Ben does that. But if
S-
you're not in those
yeah.
kinds of social situations, then you really have to be more proactive about it.
So I agree with that. However, I think the issue is a lot deeper than that. And I just had to like Google it to double check because I didn't get the numbers wrong. There, every single day, there are 100,000 songs being uploaded to Spotify. Right? Doesn't include, you know, uh, stuff that's only to SoundCloud. Doesn't include stuff that's only up to YouTube. Doesn't include all the pretentious indie
It
bands
does
that are.
include the new AI bands, though. It does include them.
That's a whole other conversation. I don't want to. Don't derail me here, sir.
I'm trying so hard to deal. No,
No. But there's like 100,000 songs a day coming out on Spotify.
yeah,
In 1970, there were like I think in the US, there were 4,000 albums total
I was gonna
released.
guess 2000.
Yeah, in all of 1970.
Okay,
I think it was like 5,600 singles. So
there's a lot of noise.
there's roughly like the amount of songs that came out in 1970 come out in like an hour and a half now.
Wow.
So that's where the whole if you build it they will come thing just completely falls apart because like everybody's fucking building it. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. Like it's there. If you were one of 4,000 albums, one of 5,600 songs that are singles, versus one of 3.6 million or whatever, it's a very very different thing. So like building it is not enough. Like building
Right.
it is not enough to make people
Right. And the
believe. And
positive flip side here is that if there people are releasing so much music every single day that there's got to be stuff that you could find yourself, working with.
Exactly. And that's like the positive thing that I look at it. It's like if there are 100,000 songs coming out every single day, there's no reason why one of them can't be yours.
Right.
And if you're doing
But it's going to be
365 songs a
harder. It's going to
year,
be harder than ever, though, still to stick out and like for the music to like be memorable, remembered. You know, you could still have had an amazing experience making the music, and it could be an emotional process, and it could be meaningful. But it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is going to find it.
yeah. And yeah, exactly. And I
Or
think
yeah, yeah,
that's like the flip side to the, oh, back in the day, artists didn't have to do social media and they did, like, yeah, because there was no competition,
right.
relative to what there is now. Like there's,
Well, there was competition, but it was gate kept
yeah,
by the industry, right?
yeah.
And then
Well, I'm saying
once you
like,
got past that
yeah,
gate, once you got past that initial gate, it was probably amazing to be an artist in the 1970s if you've already been gone past all the hurdles and now you're like accepted and popular.
yeah,
And those people are still popular and they're still raking it in on Spotify, right? Like whether you're,
yeah,
Paul Simon or whatever. Like these people are still massively streamed today. So
yeah,
that would have been a good time. It's like the best time to like get into investing is today. Like the best time was yesterday, and the second best time is right now.
yeah.
So like
Yeah. Well, and
whatever
I
it
think,
is.
but I think the point being is that it is just fundamentally a different industry, and like
Yes,
what worked then doesn't work now.
right.
So,
That's true.
uh, principle number one, the clients need to have a problem that you can solve, and the emotional and financial intensity of that problem is going to kind of like help figure out what that customer perceived value of the service is. So like mixing a song for, you know, SoundCloud rapper versus mixing a song for Ariana Grande are going to have very different respective perceived values, not just because of the sound quality, right?
Right.
So there's that. Principle number two was that they can't hire you if they don't know that you exist. And number three, which also ties into why social media is so necessary for us as producers and engineers, is that people hire people that they trust. So if I if I when we moved into the new house and we needed to get like a plumber to come do something, like I could go on Google and search for it. And if I did, I would probably go by how many reviews that they have, how close they are. Like I would want to make sure that I'm getting somebody that is not going to screw up a bigger issue. Um, or more likely, I'd probably ask a friend. I might ask like the neighbor who they use, right? And I think that's where like word of mouth does help. Like when you build trust through word of mouth, like that's why closing a deal with an artist that you've met through word of mouth is so much easier because they trust your friend.
Yeah.
They trust their friend who hired you before. That friend, your client, trusts you. So there's this like inherent sense of trust being extended to you, right? So that's why word of mouth works so well because them versus someone that's never met you before, doesn't know anything about you, there's no trust there because not that they distrust you, but there's just no, it's like a neutral amount of trust. And if you're selling something for $50, we're going to require a different amount of trust than selling something for $500 or $5,000, or the difference in trust needed when you're working on a song with a hobbyist versus somebody that is like, you know, serious but still amateur versus somebody that is like top of their game, and it is very very important that like everything goes great and that they want to be able to also like they want to feel fulfilled too. So you need to build enough trust for them to actually decide, okay, this is the right person for me. So that's where social media can be so helpful, not because you're trying to build the trust that you know how a compressor works. You're trying to get them to trust that you understand that problem that you want to solve for them. So it's like this like 3-step kind of process where you have to understand what problem you can solve for them. You have to make them aware that you exist and that you solve that problem. And then you have to build their trust so that they trust you to solve that problem.
Right. We're talking about in the client artist acquisition stage. We're not talking
Yeah.
about like once you're actually working with them, because I have a lot to talk about. Like I have a lot to say about
Yeah.
like maintaining trust and becoming somebody
Yeah.
who's continuously trustworthy, that they'll want to keep working with you over and over again, you know, unless they change their artistic direction,
Yeah.
basically.
But I
Yeah.
mean, that's a great point, because that's exactly why getting someone to like come back for a second song is like, it feels infinitely easier,
Yeah.
right?
I'm
Because
I'm working with it right now with an artist. I haven't worked with him I guess I worked with him like a few years ago, but then also before that, like it had been like a few years, and it's just like, oh, we know exactly how to work together, because like
yeah,
that trust was established when we first started working together like 7 years ago, and it's just
yeah,
like it's so easy because like we just trust each other and our processes together.
yeah, and that's exactly the thing. Like the reason that they're coming back a second time is because they have already kind of like gone through those processes. They've already,
Right.
they've realized that you solve a problem for them. They obviously are aware that you exist, and they obviously trust you,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So that's why word of mouth is easier, and why getting someone to come back for a second song is easier.
Right.
But that's why
That's why you got to
getting
hold on to your existing clients instead of is almost even more important than getting new clients
I I disagree.
potentially.
I disagree.
I'm not saying that new clients aren't important, right? Obviously, you need to
Yeah,
have leads, right? And
yeah,
it's also great for growing what you become as a art, as like an
yeah,
artist or whatever. But on on a fundamental business level, having consistent and repeat clients is just easier to keep financially, and it's like
yes,
it's a safer um it's a safer bet, I guess, just like that you're going to have recurring
yes,
revenue.
and that's where I want to fight you on it,
Go on.
because I think it's a bit of a false sense of safety, because you can't control if they come back to you or not. You can't control if they keep making
For
music or
sure.
not. And the biggest thing is that if this happens, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners
Well, that's
that
why hopefully you have
experience
several
this.
artists that you're working with at any given moment, right? And that
Yes,
because
but
then
also
hopefully you
like,
won't lose all of them at the same.
yeah,
Obviously, there's
yeah,
a
but
turnover, right? There's turnover.
but also, yeah, and also just realistically too, like, I'm 40. I want to keep working until I'm, 110, right? So like
Hell yeah.
I can't expect. I mean, let's say even if I go to 60, let's say I'm, lucky enough to be able to like make it to 60, right? I would say that, the likelihood of my clients now wanting to come back to me again and again enough to sustain my career for the next 20 years,
No, no,
it's not going to happen, right?
no. You have to
But
keep. Yeah, you're right. In
but
that sense, you have to keep the momentum going, and you have to continuously have leads, so that when there is turnover, there's newer, better projects happening. It's like a cycle.
yes,
It, it like
but
it,
but here's where this is like the biggest thing that I would really want to like get to in this whole episode is
yes. Okay. Say
the
it. Do it,
the
Carl.
yes. So stop interrupting me with your good points, Ben. Um, stop having useful and relevant interjections
I
that
will
help
stop.
forward the narrative. No, I'm joking. I love you. So the fundamental problem is that, the all of the on the plus side, with all of the benefits of having somebody that has already worked with you and keeps on going back again and again, there's a lot of benefits to that. But on the flip side, the problem is that those clients, it is extremely difficult to ever raise your rates, right? Because they came in at a particular rate, and the reason they came in at that particular rate is because the problem that you solved for them and the amount of trust you needed to build to get them there is really ultimately what led them to saying yes at whatever price you did, right? So they, like, let's say that you, even if you had like a little bit of a higher rate, like let's say that you had like a client that was, really, really, really cheap, didn't really require a lot of trust to get them in, and then they keep on coming back for more and more and more and more. But then you start to get even better at it. You start to have more creative itches that you're trying to fulfill that maybe that artist doesn't. You can either keep working with them at that rate that they came in. You can try to like incrementally raise it, or you can just like raise it a lot and just say, sorry, bud. Right. And the problem is, if we want to get people that are coming in at higher rates and staying again and again, then the thing is we need to figure out, okay, low price requires like easy problem, low rate requires low trust. Bigger problems require bigger trust, but that's what brings like the higher rate. So that is why, when we have happy existing clients, like even for myself, like if I have someone I've been working with for a long time, like I am happy to keep them at an old rate. And then when I do raise my rates for new clients, I'll let them know. I'll say, look, last time we worked together, it was X. Just so you know, like my rate for new clients now has gone up quite a bit to Y. But I love working with you. I'm just so glad to have you around. I love when we work together because we always make fun music, and also you make fun of me a lot, and it makes me feel happy. So I'm happy to meet you in the middle at Z. Right. So I'm still raising my rate for them, but it's like still not as much as like a new client. So I can do that. But ultimately, it's like if we want someone to come in at a higher rate and stay there and like see that as a deal, making a $500 client see 750 as like an increase, as like a good move is a lot harder to do than getting somebody that sees thinks that it's worth like $1,000, and you say, oh, okay, for that my rate's 750. They are like, oh my God, this is a steal.
Right.
Right? Because that price, it's not like 750 is expensive or 750 is
Right.
cheap.
The expectation is different.
Yeah, it's all relative to like the how big of a problem that you solve, and how much of a is it a technical problem that you're solving and something that really anybody else can do, or is it like a creative and emotional problem that you're solving that only you can do? So that's like the big decider then of like really what your prices should be, and I think that's why rate calculators and like tips on like how to figure out your rates, like I think they're all bullshit, because that doesn't take into consideration like what kind of existential struggle are you helping that artist with. But it's a fundamentally just a very different problem to solve, and the pricing should be based on how important is that problem, or how much does it mean to that artist to have that problem solved.
Yeah.
So when you start focusing your marketing on and all the messaging in general, like everything you do, focusing it on like this is the problem that I help people solve, and this is like it can be something that is technical, but you're probably if your selling point is something technical, it's always going to be a race to the bottom. And when I get into AI, like it's going to be a matter of time until that process is done
Yeah.
by AI for free or for very cheap. So
So,
if
yeah.
if you make it all about the technical process, like you're fucked. If you make it about that human connection, the creativity, the empathy, the existential like vulnerability and like exploration that they have when they're working with you, that is something that is irreplaceable,
So, can you give
and
me
that is
like,
something that they're only going to find with you.
yeah, no, I really like this, but I would love if you could give me some sort of like real world example of a problem that you show someone else that you can solve for them that is worth a higher rate. Like, what would be something that like Carl does in his marketing on social media to show an artist, like, you're going to want to hire me to mix this song because it's going to be worth this much.
Yeah, I mean the big thing that I
Obviously,
do.
without saying it'll be worth this much, but like,
Yeah. Oh no, the big thing that I say is like I help artists and producers that get their production to like the 97% mark, and they know that the song has more potential, not just like needing a mix. Like it's almost like it's missing something or it has too much of something. There's like something just kind of like off with it, but because they've spent so much time on it, they just have lost that objectivity. And I come in not just to like help add like I'll add ear candy and those kind of things, but also I'm the one that mixes with the producer's ear and will help to try to figure out like, oh man, if we just cut these two measures out, the flow of going from the first chorus into verse 2, or like the bridge, like it's like it's a bridge is not long enough. Like we're trying to like build this anxiety, and we're trying to like get it to like grow and feel bigger and like feel more intense, and it's just not quite getting there yet. And I think it's because, as an objective listener, like I think as an objective listener with a lot of experience doing this, I feel like, oh, we're trying to like build that tension too quickly. And I think if we spread this out, or maybe the other way around, maybe we've like built it up, we're building it up, and then like here's the part where like the release will feel really good, but that doesn't come for another 8 measures. Like let's chop that out. So for me, I come in as a mixing engineer with a very extensive production experience and listening to a gazillion songs a year. So I'm able to understand not just how to translate their ideas into a ridiculously great sounding mix, but also I can help them to fill in all those little gaps and kind of like figure out those little things that they
I
can't put their
figured it
finger
out.
on.
I figured
Yeah.
it out. You're a consultant, and consultants charge a lot of money.
I mean, that's kind of it,
Yeah.
and also knowing that like one of the big things people hire me for, it's like, it's not even because of like the quality of the mix. It's because they know I can't keep my mouth shut. If I notice something that I think is going to make the song better, and when I say better, I don't mean that in like some sort of like objective way, or not even like better in my own subjective way, but I mean closer to the goal and the vision that they're describing to me. If I hear something that I think is going to help take the song closer to that thing that they described as the finish line, I'm gonna I'm gonna do it. I
Also,
ask for forgiveness, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But like
No, that's
that's
good.
why people
Also,
that's it.
and the fact that you can't keep your mouth shut on the flip side will probably deter some artists from wanting to work with you, but it's actually for the best because then you're aligned with the right artists.
Exactly, and like there's nothing objectively right or wrong about it. Like there's nothing wrong about people that like artists that have a very, very specific, clear vision, and they just need somebody to help like like get the settings right and like capture the right sounds and like and that to piece together to like make it like a one-to-one translation from what's in their head to what's coming out of the speakers. Nothing objectively wrong with that. That is just not at all where my heart is, or what I feel is like the best use of my creativity, because I love going into it like exploring with the artist, with the producer, trying crazy shit and failing a lot, and occasionally finding something really cool, and that's what we keep in the song.
Yeah.
That's and the artists that really want that are gonna learn that about me and realize like, oh, nobody else really talks like that. Nobody else. I mean, even if people do that, they don't talk about it in their marketing. They're too busy talking about, how to phase check your floor tom or whatever. So they see that like that is like a very, kind of experience that they want to have. It's not just the price, not just the sound quality. It's like that experience. And then when you realize, you're when it's based on price, it's your price versus their price. When it's quality, it's the quality of your mix versus the quality of their mix, which is like more subjective, but like still pretty objective. But when it's like the experience of working with somebody, like the emotional like
I,
reward of working with somebody, that's that's something that you can very easily compare to like me versus somebody else.
and I
And
would
if you
say I
hear,
would go further and say the taste and opinion. You know what I
yep,
mean? And trusting that taste and opinion that it will be best for your song.
yeah, that's
Because we're
and
we're
that's
taste make we're
yeah,
like we've curated taste because like we curate taste because we've listened to so much music and that's what we obsessed about for so many years. So we've listened to so many records and we understand what makes records. You know what I mean? And that's
yeah,
like in the end, the I guess if they're paying us the big bucks, it's for our taste. It's as opposed
yeah,
to just like do this technical thing for me, which is just like then you're like a plumber,
yeah,
or
yeah,
like whatever.
yeah, and like that's that there
No
again.
shame in that. No shame in
There's
that.
yeah, and there's also like, I mean, there are, if you want it to be based on like the technique or like the technical stuff, like the good thing is there's plenty of people that are like willing to hire you to do that.
Yeah.
It's just not for me, and I feel like for a lot of listeners, it's probably not for them either, or they've done that for so long, and it just doesn't scratch the itches like it used to, and the money's not amazing. So it's like if it's not going to be creatively fulfilling, it may as well get a job that pays better,
Right.
you know? So
Woo. Well,
yeah,
that's a harsh one, but that's a pill for people to
I
swallow,
mean,
maybe.
I'm just gonna call it like I see it, but like that's why so many producers and engineers end up going into like real estate, because it's They can use their social interaction skills. They can use their charisma. They can help, like, they're able to, like, do the creative searching instead of with music. It's like with trying to find houses for people, having those conversations, and it's, usually better money.
Right.
So it's like that kind of in different hours, like you're not relying on, people coming over to your house for 12 hours a day. So like it makes sense why people go that route,
Yeah.
but it's not for me for sure.
Wow. Well, I think this is a great place to wrap this episode. I think that's is there anything else you want to add to this? Because I think I've actually, this was I thought I knew what was going to happen in this episode, but I learned a lot. And thinking about a lot of things. So it's always good when I'm coming out of an episode with you, Carl, and I have my brain starts thinking about things in new ways and tickling.
Oh,
So
good.
hopefully the audience is having the same reaction as me.
Yeah. I
So
hope so too. I hope this wasn't like super boring and just feeling like a soapbox.
it definitely was a little bit of a soapbox, but that's okay. But it wasn't boring.
Okay, good. This is something that, like, I don't know. I feel like it's my moral responsibility to just, like, beat this into the skull of every like producer and engineer I meet.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's such a it's such a pervasive myth, that you just see that big project, but then, like, when people get to the other side of that big project and realize, oh, that didn't really do it. Fuck. What do I do? Like, that's I've seen too many people with that, like, deer in headlights sort of view of their own career and, like, the future of their business, and I want to try to nip it in the bud.
All
And
right.
yeah,
Yeah. So let's keep nipping those existential crises in the bud before they happen, and keep people working on stuff that brings them joy and their clients joy, and hopefully some positive, good music in the world that will stand out in the noise that is Spotify.
yes.
The static
Ben,
and the noise. Yeah.
yeah, Ben, I missed you, and I'm
Yeah.
glad
I miss
to
you
see
too,
you today.
Carl. I am very glad I got to see you, Carl, and I hope we can get back into our rhythm and routine
Yes.
for a little bit.
Yeah. Agreed.
For at least in July.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God. And then August is going to be
August is going to
bananas.
be bananas for both of us. So yeah,
Yeah.
but for different reasons.
Yeah.
But exciting.
But you're
Yeah.
the man. I appreciate you. And until next time, bye, Ben.
Bye, Carl.